Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Wanda. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Wanda.
Hello, ladies. How are y'all doing?
It's good to see you.
You too. You too.
Good job on the election.
Hey. Too bad I couldn't deliver Tennessee for Biden Harris.
I know it. We all tried. We all tried.
Got to work on Georgia.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm giving every week to both of them. And I've already sent, I mail cards to voters. So
Oh,
I
good.
figure, yeah.
I got, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I thought Stephanie, if you're doing Stephanie's card list, weren't supposed to go out until I think the 26th. That seemed kind of late to me, but I've been abiding by that. Does anybody else get that instruction?
Yes, but you know why? I think that that's because those are identified as day of election only voters.
Okay.
And they didn't want the messages going out weeks in advance.
Right.
So
Well,
the
that makes
attempt was to reach out to them, unlike people who would be early voting. That was my understanding.
Oh, I'm glad to know. Thank you. That makes me feel better.
Okay.
Hi, Randall. Long time no see.
Hello. I saw you at the elections, but you were busy with people.
That's right. That's
I
now I
talked to Bill.
remember. Yeah, I did see you. You're right. We did see each other. But that seems like, considering that Biden and Harris have had to win over and over and over, that just seems like such a long time ago.
It sure does. And he still hasn't conceded.
Hello. Merry Christmas, everybody. Stay safe since we're in the place in the world that has more COVID than anybody per population. Go figure that.
Yeah. Every time I get a sniffle of Linda Lee, I think about that.
We're number one. We're number one.
Yeah, and the number one that we don't want to be.
That's right.
Say that again.
Hey, Sandy.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Marilyn Burton, I see you. Are you my neighbor in Chenoweth? No, she's muted, I guess.
I guess we're all set. Shall we get started?
Sure.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, let's go. My name is June Bond, and I have the privilege of inviting you to our December Williamson County League of Women Voters event. Our speaker today is Randall Putala from the World Hunger Team. Please type in any questions you may have in the chat box. Linda, would you please introduce our speaker?
I believe that's Kathy.
Kathy's doing it? Okay.
Yes,
I
thank you.
misunderstood your
Sorry,
name.
June.
Kathy? It's all right. Kathy,
Okay, that's my cue.
that's your cue.
Randall Putala is a career advertising executive who has worked for some of America's largest agencies, including Tracy Locke, BBDO, FKB Group PLC, and Allied Graphic Arts. He's the founder of the World Hunger Team, which is a nonprofit foundation dedicated to ending world hunger. He also founded the Senior Benefits Foundation, a nonprofit helping to educate seniors on making better choices for Social Security and Medicare. In addition, he's heading the agricultural efforts of Beulah, which is a Christian company working through churches to restore the economy of Kenya. And Randall, I'm not sure how you find time to enjoy your hobbies, but he does play the saxophone, the flute, the mandolin, and guitar. and he enjoys jazz music, gourmet cooking, theater, and art. We're very glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, this is going to be kind of casual. First off, how much time do you want me to take? What's the time frame here, typically?
We have until 1 o'clock. We usually hope to have some time at the end for questions,
Okay.
but you can just speak as
Okay.
much as you want to do.
Okay. Well, I only have about 27 slides, so I want to have a lot of questions and dialogue as we go along.
Oh, good.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. I think I can do it. Okay, can you see my presentation? No. Hold on.
I think we're going to get it. Yes. We have it.
Oh, you have it. Okay, good. Okay, I want to talk today about my nonprofit, World Hunger Team. What do? We create innovative food growing systems that sustain communities, restore health, and empower profitable entrepreneurship. So we cover a lot of bases, and let me explain what that means. We operate in 3 key areas. First one is developing hydroponic food growing systems. We also create alternative construction materials, primarily bricks out of plastic, and that can be recycled plastic. We also provide direct aid to promote health, wellness, and entrepreneurial success in areas of need. Everything revolves around food. How did I get started? Well, back about 10 years ago, I was giving a presentation to a seniors group in Mount Juliet at Del Webb community there. And there was this little lady sitting in the front row with a puzzled look on her face the whole meeting long. And at the end, she finally asked a question. She said, "How in the dickens did you come up with this idea?" She just couldn't figure out where this wild idea came from to help solve world hunger. And actually, I got my calling in 1976. I just graduated college. I had moved to New York City. I had an aunt and uncle living out in Regal Park, Queens. And my uncle had a boat out at Sheepshead Bay. It was a Chris Craft made out of teak wood, like a 28-foot teak wood boat. Beautiful boat from the 30s. And he would take me out and we'd go fishing for flukes and flounders. Now, everyone knows what a flounder is. We get, nice flounder food. Well, a fluke is the same thing. It has the eyes on one side and they go in the bottom of the ocean. And how you catch these is you use what's called a downrigger. And if you picture a mobile hanging like with 3 rows, you have hooks on each end. So you have 6 hooks, and he baited all 6 of my hooks, and I dropped it in the water. And are any of you fans of the Godfather movies? No. Well,
Yeah.
There was a scene in which Fredo says his secret, he's telling his young nephew, his secret was to say a prayer as he put the bait in. Well, I did that, put it in there, felt the tug, I pulled it up, and I had 6 fish, 1 on each hook. My uncle said, "Whoa, I've never seen that before. That'll never happen in a million years. Never happen again." So we took the fish off, baited my hooks, repeat the process. I felt the tug, pulled it up, 6 more fish. And he is totally freaking out. He says, "I've been fishing out here my whole life." And at this point, he was in his 80s. He said he had never seen that before. And I felt the calling, literally, at that point, that somehow I was going to be involved in feeding people. And I had that in my mind. Now, prior to this, in high school, I was raised Catholic, but I became a Jesus freak. Do you remember the Jesus freak days? Where you'd have people at the mall chasing you down with little Bible tracts and preaching the gospel. Well, that was me. And I had hair back then. I actually had long hair. I had a ponytail, and all the girls were jealous because I never got split ends. But I had a calling from God, and I felt very strongly this was my calling. But I got into advertising, and I was working 6-7 days a week. And finally, God kept hinting, "Hey, time to get going on that nonprofit and help feed the world." And what he'll do, I know this isn't a religious group, but I'm assuming most of you are people of faith. He sort of chopped me down and said, you got to get going on this thing. So I did. I established the nonprofit in 2008. Hold on, let me just turn this off. Well, it's supposed to go off. I established the nonprofit in 2008, and I published this book. It's called Feed the World for free, for almost free forever. And it became our position statement. And I'll get into a little bit of how my mission has changed over the years. If you can read the title there, it says how we can use recycled plastic containers to build greenhouses to end world hunger now. So we got into hydroponics about 2015. And the reason we got into hydroponics is it's really the simplest possible way to grow food. It is unbelievably easy. You grow the plants in water using organic nutrients. And I'll get into that in a bit here. We expanded our focus to Africa in 2019, and there's a really good reason why we did that. First, I want to cover what it is we're trying to accomplish. You know, you could say, well, growing food is easy. You can set up a garden in the back, or you can set up a community garden, or you can just get more farmers to grow food. One of the big problems is really inherent in the household itself. Over the past 50 years, the American diet has shifted mostly to processed foods and fast foods, leading to obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, and other indicators of poor health. Children, if you ask them where food comes from, they'll say Kroger. They really don't know where it's grown, where it's produced. They don't understand farming, and they have no clue how you would even go about growing food. In families, you know, they're running out of time and money, so they get the cheapest possible food, and especially in urban food deserts, and that's where there's no source of fresh vegetables or food within a 1 mile radius of the home. They end up eating fast food. And there's many social organizations and support services that have excellent intentions to get these people the food they need. But again, they end up getting an EBT card and they buy junk food. And that's a sad reality in America. Well, how big is the problem? Right now, the U.S. obesity rate stands at 42.4%. That is absolutely staggering. It's increased by 26% since 2008. Now, what else has increased dramatically? The presence of fast food restaurants, the presence of takeout food, pre-processed food. So our contention is that if people don't know the advantages of eating fresh vegetables and greens, they may not know what they're missing. They say, well, I don't like those things. I like French fries. I like burgers. It's really penny wise, pound foolish. They're saving money on food, but their health costs are going through the roof. Very, very few people today grow their own food because everyone's so busy. Even people in retirement are too busy often to have a garden, or they just don't have the strength and the energy to do all the work necessary to grow food traditionally. There's also a lack of task-appropriate resources. And by that, I mean that people may want to grow food, but if you wanted to join a community garden here, you know, I'm in Brentwood, where would you go? You know, there's some community garden space behind Brentwood Baptist Church, but it's also very difficult. If you ever go out there, has anyone ever been out there to see the gardens behind the church? You should go by in the summer. Go by in May, June, everyone's like gung-ho. Yeah, we're going to grow food. Go out there in July, August, and they're like, are you out of your mind? It's 100 degrees out here. They're sweating. They have to get there at 6 a.m. and be done by 7 or else they burn up. So growing food can be very difficult. Our solution is a little bit different. Our method is to grow organic food where little is grown now. And by that, I mean places where you wouldn't think of growing food. We've got 3 very simple and inexpensive growing units that meet very specific needs. The first one, if you see on the left there, it's what we call our grow tent. And this is actually in my office. It uses LED lights. It's got 2 sets of trays. And these are actually just like a bus tray, like a bus bin you'd see at the restaurant where the guy comes by to pick up the dirty dishes. It's a Tupperware. It's about 10 inches high. and you cut holes in the lids and you fill it with liquid nutrients and turn on the lights on a timer where they're on for really about 16 hours a day and off for 8. And you don't have to do anything. The plants grow on autopilot. You can literally go on vacation, go out of the country, come back a month later, and your plants are doing fine. That's how much work is involved. There's no work, literally none. The second one is a commercial carousel unit. And I'll explain that little drawing there. We are actually building 120 of these right now up in Westmoreland, Tennessee. That's kind of northeast, almost to the Kentucky border. And then the third thing is a thing we discovered in Africa. It's called a grow tower. And I'll explain that. We are actually producing a mass-produced version of this that's going to be a lot cheaper and easier to grow food than what they're doing in Africa. One of the questions a lot of people ask is, why not just do more conventional farming? Well, farming is difficult. It's hard work. If you know anyone who's a farmer, if you've been around farms, these people work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they're hit with all types of challenges with bugs, pests, disease, lack of rain, too much rain. So crop failure is very common. Whereas with indoor plants, using what we call the Kratky system of non-circulating hydroponics, it's very easy to grow and you don't face a lot of those issues. Here's how it works. Here's the bus tray. It's about 10 inches. This one's 8. We use one that's 10. If you see the roots here hanging down, when you start
What? Don't worry about it.
when you start the plants, you actually fill the tank all the way to the top, just shy of the rim. And the seeds are put in these little cups. And what we use, it's a mesh cup. We fill that with shredded coconut husk. It's called coconut coir, C-O-I-R. And the reason you do that is because if you put dirt in there, it would dissolve and go into the water. Coconut husk doesn't interfere with the plants. The plants love it. It's a very good medium. So what happens is, as the seeds start to sprout, they drink the water, the nutrients, and the water level drops. And where you want to get it is half filled with the nutrient water, and the top half is air. And what the plants quickly realize is they get all their food from the bottom part, the water, and they get all their oxygen from the top part. And this is called non-circulating because we don't use bubblers. We don't have any running motors or pumps of any kind, and the plants do just fine. The guy who discovered this was a guy named Bernard Kratky in the 1970s. He was a botany teacher at the University of Hawaii. And he was doing research in Taiwan. And he saw that the Taiwanese farmers were growing plants, growing crops in the swamps. And there's no water circulating. And he said, well, how can you do this? Don't you have to provide oxygen? I said, no, if you raise the plants, they'll get the oxygen from the air. The crops literally go crazy. They love the light. We use a very specific light recipe, which covers all the way from extremely low band to extremely high band of colors, just like the sun. And we can grow things. We can grow, of course, any kind of lettuce, spinach, kale. Swiss chard does exceptionally well. We can grow tomatoes as long as they're small bush tomatoes. And we use all mineral nutrients. We don't do anything with GMO. We had no pesticides, no herbicides. We're bringing in heirloom seeds from around the world. And the reason I say that is Holland has been growing indoors. The majority of their food has been grown hydroponically for almost 50 years now. And they have developed hybrids of seeds that are extremely resistant to disease and pests and produce extreme yields and very high nutrition. The Chinese grow a lot hydroponically, very good crops. We can grow all types of herbs. Basil does tremendously well in these greenhouses. And you might ask, is this food organic? And the answer is yes. It's actually USDA approved as organic. We use a thing called mineral, it's not Miracle Grow, it's Chem Grow, but it's has all the major nutrients, all the major minerals rather, nitrogen, boron, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, zinc, So you use 20 grams of that in a 5-gallon pail. Use 20 grams of calcium nitrate. Calcium is what gives the plants their oomph, their vigor. And then Epsom salts, the same kind you'd put in your bathtub. These are all naturally occurring. I mean, Epsom was discovered in the town of Epsom, England. And they were growing, and they started using that to feed plants. But again, the USDA has confirmed that these are organic. Now you might say, well, those sound like chemicals. Why don't you use something natural? Well, they're all naturally occurring in the ground. Here's something a lot of people don't understand about organic food. You talk to people and they say, oh, I only eat organic food if they use cow manure or horse manure to feed those plants. The reason that works so well is the cows and the horses and the sheep are actually, they're programmed to find the crops, the weeds that contain the minerals they need at that point. If they're feeling sick, they will eat a different kind of weed as opposed to the regular hay or straw. They will go and find weeds that have roots that go down 20, 30 feet. The reason they do that is they know those weeds have sought out manganese or iron or copper, and those weeds contain those minerals. So what you're getting is what they have digested. You don't need the horse poop. That brings you actually very little in terms of nutritional value. We provide the same thing that's in those weeds and grasses that the cows and horses are eating. It's just in a liquid form. We put this into solution. Does anyone have any questions about this? I can't see any other questions on the side. Any questions? No? I don't hear anybody.
I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, let's go through the units. The home unit, it's set up to grow in a very small space. This tent is actually 3 foot by 3 foot wide by 7 foot high. So it can actually go into a condo. You can grow crops on the 20th floor of your condo downtown. And this is really good for the millennials. You know, they're into juicing. They go to Whole Foods, or as it's known in the trade, Whole Paycheck, and they buy, $100 worth of greens, and they come home and they put it in their blender. With this unit, you can actually, when you wake up in the morning, you open the zipper, you clip a few plants, and you put them right into your blender. I mentioned Swiss chard earlier. A lot of the juicers use celery as their main ingredient because it has high volume, but celery does not grow very well hydroponically, whereas Swiss chard does, and it's in the same family, so you get the same huge stalk, and works really well for juicing. And again, you can fill your nutrient tank and walk away. Really, I put 2 weeks. It's really up to 4 weeks before your plants suffer any. So if you have someone who has a busy lifestyle, travels on their job, they don't have to work on the farm to get vegetables. They just set it up and walk away. And we use an extremely efficient low voltage light bank. And believe it or not, it was developed by this guy up in Westmoreland, Tennessee, who was a lighting engineer. He's actually way outperforming the Chinese on the quality of their LEDs. We use 1/20th of the power of most indoor greenhouses. Benefits of this unit, you can have it at home. You can also put it at food banks and homeless shelters to grow sustainable food. One unit can grow 36 heads of lettuce per week. Now, when you start these plants, it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks till they get to a decent size. But once they're of full size, you cut them about 1 inch off the base and they'll just come right back. And they'll keep producing for several months. So the unit will pay for itself very, very quickly. Our other solution uses shipping containers. Now, everyone knows what a shipping container is. You see them going down the highway. They come in on, at the Radnor rail yard, and then they put them onto tractor trailers and they tow them to their location. America uses 20 million shipping containers every day, and there's another 20 million sitting unused. So a lot of people have gotten into this business of growing crops in used shipping containers. Freight farms is one, crop box is another. There's a whole lot of them. Some of them aren't making it because they're trying to get $250,000 for a freight farm, and and I'm sorry, it takes a lot of lettuce to make up for $250,000 investment. Ours are much lower in cost because we have perfected a unique way of growing the crops. So let me just finish this. We can grow up to 288 plants in a 10-foot container and over 1,152 in a 40-foot container. Now you might say, well, how do you do that? We have this patented unit we created, and you see some of the technical drawings in the right here. It's like a giant Ferris wheel. The light source is actually on the center stake. These are giant gears on a servo motor. The trays revolve around the lights. So we can put like 8 trays here. Actually, we can do more than that. I think we're up to 12 at this point. And they rotate slowly around the light source. The key advantage to that, our competitors are all using giant racks. In order to work on the plants, you have to be on a pulley, on a harness, and you have to be leaning way over to work on each plant. So if you're over the age of 30, guess what? You can't work in that machine. You can't work there. It's just too strenuous. With our unit, you have a turn dial. You turn the dial and bring the tray to your level. You could be seated in a chair or even a wheelchair, and you can touch every plant in that greenhouse. So the plants come to you, and you harvest in that way, you plant them, you treat them. This is, again, patented. We have a provisional patent. We're waiting on our full utility patent. But the key thing we've done here, I hate that phone. We use parabolic mirrors, which are basically disco balls. Remember the old disco era? And those parabolic mirrors bounce the light to both sides of the leaves. So all sides of the leaves get covered, so they grow faster and stronger. So that's really our game changer. We can, the other thing we can do, we generate our own electricity. This farm that is being built up in Westmoreland is totally self-powered. It does not even hook to the grid. I'll come back to this. This is how we do it. It's a mag drive unit. And I know I'm getting into the weeds here in technicality, but let's suffice it to say that we generate our own power. So there's no massive cost for electricity. It's a high cost to start up, but over time, it gets very cheap to operate. Here's a single wide. We can put 3 racks in this one, 9 total racks. This grows as much as a 1.5 acre farm. In a double wide, 2 units will grow as much as a 3 acre farm. Our third unit is what we call a grow tower. If you see the top picture, this is what they're doing in Africa. We're working heavily in Kenya right now, and land is at a shortage. Now you might think, oh, wait a minute, Africa's the biggest continent on earth. Why would land be a shortage? And all I can say is it gets into the landowners, the rich people, and politics. People don't have their own land, and the government won't let you use the public land. The government won't even let them use the water in the stream that is a public stream. You have to have a license to take the water out of the stream. And they're very high priced. So what these guys have come up with, that's actually, those black bands are recycled milk jug plastic, number 2 HDPE, kind of like an inner tube. And they make a big ring and they fill it with a mixture of dirt and manure. And believe it or not, these are actually very labor intensive and very costly for the locals because they have to buy the manure. Manure is a cash crop there. But they're doing it because they can put a lot more plants in a limited area. And you see in the bottom picture how they're growing. And they come through every day with a hose and water the plants, and they get quite a good yield. So you have more plant row length out of limited land. We're taking this concept and taking it to a new level. What we've created is a plastic brick. And if you see here, these are snapped together like Lego. They're hollow, just like a milk jug. You ship them empty to the location. And there's a cap here. The locals fill it with the dirt from their farm. So they take it and fill it full of dirt, turn the cap, and it's now a heavy brick. The key advantage of this is shipping, because many of the roads in Africa, even if you had a truck, you couldn't get the truck down the road because you'll have 3-foot potholes and you can't get down the road. We're taking this to kind of a new level here at the bottom, where these bricks all snap together in a grid. These, if you see, they're skinny bricks. Each of these blue lines is a ring of bricks. So they're 3 by 3. So you've got 9 feet by 9 feet. The next level goes on top of that. And this outer 1 foot, you put a base on it, and that's what you fill with the dirt. But the interesting thing about what we're doing here, by leaving these open spaces, we put water bags in there. These are like, if you go camping, you could have a flat bag that you fill with the rainwater. And that's what we're doing. And in this 4-tiered tower, we could store up to 700 gallons of rainwater at any time. So that water is not only used to water the plants, it's used for cooking and it's used for bathing. One of the big issues in Africa, they are still taking their water jugs and walking 2, 3, 4, 5 miles every morning to get water to use at the house. And you'd think, how in this day and age can it be that primitive? Well, it is. It just still is. Africa is so far behind the times, you can't even believe it. So by having multiple of these grow towers, we call it the Tower of Life, you're now collecting water. And how you do that, the top one is a box and it collects, it has flaps that open up, and it collects rainwater. So when the rain's over, you close it up. But this is a way to collect rainwater and water the plants. We have a gravity-powered drip irrigation system using the same nutrients that go through aquarium tubes into drip nozzles that snap into the edge of these bricks. And you can set a timer. It can be done manually, but the ideal way is to use a solar-powered timer and have it kick into rain first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. So your plants are being watered. And it's not that the farmers don't have time or effort to do this. We just want to make it foolproof. The key advantages of using plastic bricks, again, they can be made out of recycled plastic, which is a huge problem in Africa, just like it's a huge problem here. We can actually airlift these, and we can airlift them using planes, and in some cases we can actually use drones to drop them into these remote locations. They're filled with the dirt and snapped together on site without tools, weather and rot resistance, and the universal design eliminates multiple parts. At first we thought this was only going to be good for Africa, and we said, well, you can only collect rainwater here in the lower United States, and even then, during the winter, you can't collect water because it'll freeze. Well, what we came up with is a low voltage heating plate that goes underneath the bags, keeps it at 40 degrees minimum, so it never freezes. So now think of the advantage of collecting rainwater at homes all across America. There's a lot of survivalists out there. And in fact, the Mormons, their members are told you will keep 6 months of food and water at your home at all times. Well, a lot of the survivalists say, you know, what's going to happen if our systems collapse? Well, this is a way you can grow food and can it during, you know, the summer months, and you can collect rainwater all year round. A couple other things we're involved in Uganda. Just a few months ago, we raised money for mosquito nets for orphans so they don't get malaria, because they've had a huge rainy season there. And they're unfortunately starting to lose a lot of kids to malaria. So we raised some money. Some of your members donated, and I appreciate that, ladies. We also raised $150 to buy thermometers. One of my connections there in Uganda, he runs 7 branch churches, or what they call plant churches. And the government shut them down, said, until you can afford to get thermometers to check for COVID, we can't allow you to congregate. So we raised the money, got them the thermometers, and now they're having church service again. We're also involved with a group out of Brentwood Baptist called Beulah. And Beulah's mission is to restore the economy of Kenya through the churches. And I handle the ag portion of that. So our goal there is a little bit different. We're trying to work with existing farmers to reduce pests naturally. They lose over 55% of their crops to bugs and nematodes, which is a massive problem. And they cannot afford the pesticides, they can't afford the fertilizer. We're trying to come up with ways to do this naturally. And we're finding some really exciting things. Real briefly, I'll say they're in South Korea. They have found a way to naturally kill nematodes. Now, I don't know if everyone knows what nematodes are. They're little worms in the dirt that eat the plant roots. And what happens is the plants lose their strength and just fall over. Well, all of Africa is teeming with life. It is just, everything is living and thriving. And the worms are no exception. They will eat everything. When you put a nice, they're living off rotted tree leaves from 10, 20 years ago. So when you put a nice new juicy plant in the ground, it's like you opened up a fast food restaurant, like lights are flashing. Hey, new food. And they quickly go and eat it. Well, the South Koreans learned something really interesting. They learned that these nematodes love kimchi. Now, as you know, kimchi is just like our sauerkraut. It's fermented, but they use Napa cabbage, and they fermented and put some massively strong peppers in there. What they discovered was that these nematodes have a two-phase digestive system. Well, in order to digest kimchi or fermented foods, you need a three-stage digestive system. So the worms can't avoid eating the food. They love it, and then they die because they can't digest it. So it's a natural win-win situation. So right now we're looking at different crops we can grow in Africa, similar to Napa cabbage, that will grow well there and that we can make fermented products and then dry this and put it in the soil and hopefully get rid of the nematodes. So we're doing some interesting things. And the other thing we've discovered, when the British came in the 1840s, I believe it was, to take over, and they kind of took over Kenya, they said, okay, all those crops you're growing, those are all weird. We don't like those. You're going to grow corn and wheat and rice. And they did that. And what happened? Diabetes, hypertension, obesity, all started to rise. So we are now researching the lost crops of Africa, and the Africans love this stuff. They just weren't allowed to grow it by the landowners when the British came in. So we're finding a lot of crops that are extremely healthy, extremely nutritious, and trying to bring those back. And we're not the only ones. There's other people doing it. We're just trying to do it on a larger scale. Okay, how can you help our organization? One easy way that's free is to select us on Amazon Smile. You can always select the charity on Amazon, and we are registered, so just select World Hunger Team, and we'll get a cut of everything you buy, and it doesn't cost you a penny. If anyone wants to support us, here's our link, and we have givingmatters.com is the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and we're registered with them. And if you know of anyone who's interested in this category, we're actually looking at a private investor, trying to find a private investor for our Tower of Life, because we think this is a category killer, because the way we're manufacturing it is going to be extremely low cost. So if you know of anyone who is looking to get into something at the ground floor, this could be a nice investment. And we think there's, again, a huge domestic opportunity. So that's really it. That's what I've got. Here's my contact information, and I can send you a copy of this presentation if anyone wants to have it. So let's open it up for questions.
I have a question. I know electricity is a problem. Access to electricity is a problem in many parts of Africa. How much electricity do these units use?
Well, in our particular case in Kenya, we don't need the lights because they're on the equator and they have moderate temperature 11 months out of the year. So there's no need to have any LED lights. And the only electricity needed, and it's optional, is to put the system on auto irrigation for a solar powered small pump. Really, nothing much bigger than an aquarium pump is needed to circulate the water. Our situation in Kenya, all we need to protect those units from is downpour. Because when it rains in Kenya, oh my God, you're talking, it can flatten houses. So we're looking at giant poles with clear plastic tents over the top to keep it, to protect it from the downpour. But other than that, you don't need electricity.
Randall, are the towers that you do, they're always outside, aren't they?
Yes, they're for outside use, because indoors you'd have to use a lot of lights. It could be done,
Right.
but no, this is designed for outdoor. The construction we're doing is not 100% waterproof, so you will have seepage as the plants get rained on. The rain will go through into the ground. So it's not a sealed unit. The one that's in the tent, that is totally sealed, and that you can put like in your apartment, and it's not going to leak unless you tip it over. But other than that, it's not going to leak.
And then the unit that uses a small pump, like an aquarium pump, why aren't those plants raised so they just get it from the roots? Why don't they do the first thing you mentioned, like in a swamp when they're raised and the air comes from the root?
Okay. Yeah, we're not using non-circulating hydroponics in those units because those are for outdoor growing. And again,
Okay.
yeah, there's no need to use the hydroponics there. You use regular dirt, and you don't even have to use the manure, because what we do is we add all of the nutrients that the plants need to the mixture that we water them with. You would just use ordinary dirt. Again, that unit's for outdoor pretty much exclusively. Okay, so
Randall?
yeah. Go
Do
ahead.
you think, I know one of the chefs who's known for feeding the hungry was on one of the news shows the other night, and he suggested that Biden install some sort of cabinet level member or some high level member of his administration just to deal with food insecurity and world hunger. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I definitely think there needs to be better focus on that. And the government, the US government for years has put a lot of money in grants out there trying to find a solution to the hunger crisis. And not just, in Africa, they're talking about America. I forget the statistic. I think it's like 4 out of 20 children are food insecure. And we have a huge problem here in America. And, there's not been a lot of focus here on growing community food because of the cost, because of the politics or the privatization. There's 101 reasons, why we don't do it here. But I agree. I hope there will be more focus on that. One interesting thing, the United Nations about 7 or 8 years ago, they saw the curve, they saw the graph that, here's the population going up like this, and here's the food supply doing this. And they said, where's that gap going to be filled? So they approached experts in all the countries of the world and said, what do you guys think? How can we best address this? And a lot of people thought they were going to come back saying, well, we need massive, massive farms with huge tractors and, bigger is better. And the results that came back were the exact opposite. They said small farms that feed people in a 1 mile radius of that farm is the answer. And gee, guess what? America had that how many years ago? That's the way we used to operate. You used to get your crops from the local farmer. You got your milk from the local dairy farmer. And now they're saying we need to go back to that. So we kind of think we're onto something here. And we're trying to take it a step further, that say a church might have 10 of these grow units in their gym or in their somewhere in an unused room in their facility, and they're growing lettuce and crops and basil, and they're growing Swiss chard and tomatoes, and they could sell them after Sunday service. So that would be a way to get people food who maybe don't even want to admit their food, they have a food shortage. A lot of people want to be proud and say, oh, we're doing just fine, but they're not. And it might surprise you, some of the people you think are the haves really are the have-nots, and they need some help. And of course, seniors all over need help. You know, they don't have a steady income. Okay, a couple of questions here. Where is the nutrient tank? How does it connect to the different containers? In the tent unit, those growing trays are the nutrient tank. You fill it directly. In the tower, it's the top layer. We have a top level that collects the rainwater. Right below that is a circular ring that you fill with water. And we do that at the top because then the gravity, you can literally just open it up, turn the dial, and the gravity will pressurize the water throughout. And in the containers where we have our Ferris wheel, that you actually manually add the water daily. We looked at doing a electric eye that would measure the water and squirt it, but the money and the technology is just not there yet. Okay. Does World Hunger grow and distribute food? No, we don't. We do not know. We're all about systems, and our goal is to create systems that can be replicated and spread out worldwide. Any other questions? Oh, someone asked where the book. I tell you what, I will provide this to your group leader. She can circulate my information. I will give you a copy of this book for a donation. I mean, if you can donate $10, the book sells for $20 on Amazon. If you can donate $10, I'll send you a free copy. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
I had a question. What was it? Oh, I know what it was. What other kinds of things can you grow root vegetables?
Yes, absolutely. We grow things like rutabagas. We grow beets. We grow turnips, radishes. How we do that, it's kind of interesting. We use these pebbles. They're not vermiculite because vermiculite floats. They're more like small marbles, and you plant the roots right into. You put the cup right into that. You don't have the plastic lid, and the roots go down, and the crop grows underneath the surface. So yeah, you can grow. You can't really grow things like potatoes. They don't do so well. Potatoes really need dirt, and for that we recommend using a barrel. You basically fill a barrel with the dirt. You've probably seen potato barrels. You cut holes in the side. But yeah, we can grow root crops very well.
How about berries? Have they tried berries yet?
Well, yeah, you can. They don't do so well. Now, in the Tower of Life, since that's continuous dirt, and by the way, that Tower of Life in an 8 by 8 foot area has 84 linear feet of growing space. So you can grow a lot of crops. Well, our goal there is to plant things. You can grow strawberries. You can grow, there's some lost crops that are berries. I don't have the list in front of me, but there are a variety of berry crops, and yeah, they grow really well, just like we do in the garden. But no, not so well in hydroponics. Not really that well.
Yeah.
I know that the First Methodist Church in Franklin has a community garden that's fairly large.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you talked to them about developing hydroponic gardens for their?
Yeah, they have a different mission. They're doing conventional gardening. And there's a big one up at the Ellington Ag Center that is growing insane amounts of food, 60,000 pounds a summer. It's all conventional farming. Different mission. Our thing is not conventional farming, at least not here in the States. Ours is growing crops where crops are not being grown currently. And that could be in schools, working with the school kids, working with the science teacher to get the kids involved in growing crops in the school and then serving the food in the cafeteria. And again, it's primarily, we do really well with any of the leafy vegetables, the lettuce, kale, spinach, Swiss chard, anything with a leaf, we grow really, really well. And it grows very fast, and it can be, you chop it and it keeps growing. It's like an ongoing perennial crop. we believe that as more schools get involved, some of the parents will say, hey, why don't I get one of these for the house? You know, if the kid comes home, and part of our mission is to educate kids on where food comes from. And if they are allowed to take some of these crops home in a bag, and they're all excited about growing, we think the parents are going to say, well, let's get a small unit for the garage and grow crops here. And what ends up happening is the kids eat more fresh vegetables, and they start to develop a taste for it, and they like salads more. And then their health goes up, the obesity goes down. So that's really our mission. We know most of the guys who are doing it's Cultivate is the one at Ellington Ag Center, and they're great people, no question about it. And a lot of the churches do have community gardens, but even here, and we're in the South, and you really have only 7-8 months a year you can grow crops. Our solutions are really more year-round.
Is anybody in Nashville using them right now?
Not really, no, because we have prototype units that my board members have, and I have one here in the office. We really haven't had the investment to go out and start selling these. We were originally trying to put these on Amazon, and we found that the price point was just too high. We've worked on coming up with cheaper solutions. Most of the indoor growing businesses that sell units to grow stuff indoors, can anyone guess what the main crop they're growing indoors is?
Herbs?
Well, a kind of herb.
Marijuana.
Bingo. The whole industry is geared around marijuana. And we're different because marijuana, you put the tanks, basically like a giant flower pot, in the base of these tents, and those stalks get 6-7 foot high. Ours are designed, we have 2 racks, and they're designed for smaller plants. You can grow more in the space, but it's tough to compete in that market. We have not conquered that. A lot of competitors there.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
You said that where was it, Westmoreland, that they generated their own power?
Yep.
How do they do that?
Okay. He's got a flywheel design. You basically you prime it. Let's see if I can share my screen. I'll show it again. See my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. What he's got here, this unit has giant magnets and a flywheel. And you start it using solar power or conventional plug-in. And it takes about 3-4 days to get it running to maximum speed. And then it pretty much is primed by solar, but it keeps going 24/7 and generates power. You can actually sell power, the power you don't use, back onto the grid. So NES will pay you for it. And the installation we're doing in Westmoreland, it's actually one of the major grocery chains. I can't say which one. But when COVID-19 hit, all of a sudden they couldn't get organic vegetables anymore. And they kind of freaked out and they said, okay, what if this keeps going? Here we have probably half of their market. People are willing to pay twice the price of regular vegetables because they want organic. So they wanted a supply that would keep kicking out vegetables no matter what. And, I personally don't have a doomsday approach. I don't think our power grid's going to explode. I don't think we're going to be taken over by Russians, But there are people out there who think that. And they say, what are we going to do if our sources can't provide organic food? So they're funding this huge installation, knowing that it's going to kick out a massive amount of organic vegetables. And they particularly like the fact that even though they're investing a lot now in the power unit, they love the fact that it'll keep producing no matter what, even if the power grid goes out. these guys are really pretty smart, and they've been selling these units to airports. Not so much to power the airport itself, but to power like the parking lights, the lights all around the facility, and actually the lights in the airport. So they're putting these units in airports all over America. So it's different from a generator. A generator, you know, they kick in the kerosene or the gas generator, and they can only go for a couple of days before they get kind of over and burned out. These can go permanently. If your power grid is completely destroyed, you can keep running your airport using these units. Any other questions about that? Okay. Let's see.
There are a couple more questions in the chat box.
Yeah. Walk us through setting up one of your home units in our own home. Well, we don't have them for sale yet. We're still working on sourcing it. All these supplies come from China. And there's a lot of people right now saying you really don't want to get in a long-term business relationship with China. A lot of negative comments there. And some of it came to light just this past week where there were protests downtown Nashville. One of our representatives said some bad things about China, and the Chinese weren't too fond of it. So we're kind of taking a wait and see. We're talking to some people in India who have a lot of the same manufacturing capacity. But once this unit is complete, it'll be just snapped together, plug and play. It's very simple stuff. It's not complicated at all. How much does a basic tent unit cost? We are trying to get it under $600 retail. And that would be a nice figure. Right now we're close to 1,000 and we're not finding a lot of takers at that. Part of it is that I'm not an engineer. I'm an artsy kind of guy. You know, salesman always says, yeah, we can do it, and then figure out how to do it later. A technical guy says, no, let's do it the other way around. Well, he built the frame of my home unit. It'd be great if it was going in the Smithsonian Institution. You know, you could land a plane on it, it's that heavy, but it's also very costly. And he refuses to back down, so I'm having to go elsewhere to find ways to do it cheaper. And we know it can be done. It's just a matter of finding the right engineer. I'm working with a new gal in Laverne. She designed those bricks for the Tower of Life. She's a CAD/CAM design expert. She actually designs toys for a living. And so she's trying to come up with a way to blow mold the parts so that they're, again, very cheap. You imagine, like, he's using structural steel where that frame cost me $300. I'm trying to build the thing out of snap together plastic bricks that will cost me about $1 a piece. A lot cheaper. So I'm thinking differently than him, but you know, I want a good quality product. I want to keep it inexpensive. So there's more margin. So what other questions do we have?
Okay, I think we're about ready to wrap up. Thank you so much. Oh, you have one more, Linda Lee, yes.
Unmute.
Sorry, yeah, it took me a minute. Is there a way that we can get a recording of this if we'd like to send it to, like, say, one of my children is an engineer and mechanical engineer, and so I think he would be very interested. I've got 3 kids who do their own farming and growing, even have a milk cow and chickens and whatever. So is there a way that we could share this recording? It was done, is that right?
Yes, the League of Women Voters is presently recording these meetings. I will speak to them and get back to you.
Okay, thank you, Jean.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
think
for
the
your
question is,
presentation.
oh, you're welcome. The question is where they're storing them, and I don't think I have the answer to that quite yet, but I will find out. Thank you. Thank you, Randall, very much. It was very, very good.
Well, thanks. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We are not having a meeting next month because our regular meeting date happens to be Inauguration Day. So we're hoping you're all going to be watching the inauguration next month. February, we're having Charles Sumner from the Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and that will be on February 17th. Thanks again. Hope to see you next month.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Wanda.